Hello, everybody. You are tuned into the Walk Off Podcast here. As usual, I'm Justin, your host. I'm joined with Davis and Leroy. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing
Good,
good.
good.
Yeah, doing good. Baseball is back, and I've been enjoying it, and I know you guys have. Baseball is one of those sports where events that you can just your team plays just basically every night, and on the rare occasion that they're not playing, there's always something that you can find, a good game or pitcher's battle or whatever you can find. So it's just an awesome time of year right now.
Yeah, that first week in baseball is great, where every team feels like they might have a chance, and it's great team see the teams get back out there.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. We sat here every episode talking about how close we were to opening day in baseball season. Well, we are finally here and things feel a little normal again. There's fans in the stands, there's baseball being played. It's a marathon, no more sprint. So I don't know about you boys, but I feel like everything's starting to feel normal again, especially with baseball here, and I like it. And we're going to kick off here talking about something that's a little too normal. We're going to talk about an injury here. We want to talk about James Paxton and these poor Mariner fans. We've talked about them before. You know, they went out, they got this great farm system. They went out, they brought James Paxton back. And unfortunately, after one single game, this man has been recommended for a Tommy John surgery. Now, this is someone who I thought coming into this year, he was going to help solidify that rotation on a young team where they're going to have a lot of good, really good outfielders, but a decent team around them altogether. And then something like this happens. If you look around the league so far, there actually has been a good amount of injuries on, you know, high name players for a lot of teams. This is just another one in the most recent. But I'll go to you, Davis, first. I want to know what you think about the surgery for James Paxton, what this is going to mean in his career and what it means really for the Mariners at this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of brushed upon it. How you said, it is unfortunately common procedure in this sport, and you absolutely wish it on no one. But for James Paxton, it's just really is brutal at the point he's at in his career. And this is a guy who has struggled with injuries, but when he's healthy, he's pretty elite. You look at his 2019 season; it's his best recent year. Went 15-6 and pretty solid ERA. So, it illustrates that when he's healthy, he can be a elite pitcher, and that's why the Mariners brought him back. And that being said, he only appeared in five or so starts last year, made it, which is about a quarter of the season, the shortened season. So I think it was back injury shut him down again. So for a guy who's getting a little bit later in his career, it's something you really don't want to see because it's going to put him back at least a year. And at his age, it might be into the next season as well. So, and it's brutal for Mariners fans too, who, as we discussed, are on the brink of, becoming a contender. We talked about that. We're talking about the AL West. I don't know if they were going to make the playoffs this year, but we talked about what the prospects they have. They're going to make a push at some point. They're going to be a really good team. There's a lot of talent there. And I don't think as a whole, losing Paxton this year is going to mess that up or anything, but it certainly would have been a nice piece that could have, they could have started building this season, maybe making a run like we talked about in the AL West episode. So his future with the team's in limbo because he's on a 1-year deal. But if Seattle, the team that drafted him, re-signed him, I think maybe they'll stick with him, maybe give him a restructured deal and try to get him through the injury. But yeah, I mean, the Mariners have a solid staff even without Paxton. So I think, it definitely hurts them, but I think it'll give a chance for younger guys to get some reps. And like I said, might not be a playoff team this year, off to a 3-4 start, but it's a major roadblock to success they could have had this year. But I think the long term for Paxton and for this team could still be looking bright.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but not necessarily unexpected, right? James Paxton, as Davis said, when healthy is fantastic. I mean, his career 3.59 ERA, but he's never appeared in more than 30 games. 29 has been his max. He's maxed out at 160 innings, and that was a few years ago. By the end of this year, he will have gone 2 years and only pitched 21 innings. And even if you looked at his at some of the projections for this year's Zips and Steamer and those places, they had him projected to pitch in 15, 16, 17 games. So I think, we baseball fans, Mariners fans knew that, they weren't going to get a full season of starts out of Paxton, but I'm assuming they hoped he was going to make it to the All-Star break at least, right? But that didn't happen. And, it's really a shame for for Paxton for a couple of reasons. One, he really looked good this spring, and he looked like for whatever time he was going to spend on the mound for the Mariners, he could have really been a difference maker. And for two, like Davis said, he's on a 1-year deal. So what happens? I mean, he's going to come into, he's not going to be ready by opening day next year. So, does he re-sign with the Mariners and they just kind of hope, they can get something out of him next year, or does he just float around until he's healthy? It's, I imagine for him and his family, it's kind of a scary position to be in, with this uncertainty about his future. And for the Mariners, like Davis said, they're a team on the rise, but they really couldn't afford this. They've already given up the second most runs in the American League, and James Paxton could have been a big help to that. So just a shame all the way around. You hate to see injuries for anyone on any team. So hopefully he comes back healthy next year and catches on somewhere. I'd love to see him back with the Mariners. I thought it was a good story. Here's wishing well to Mr. Paxton.
Yeah, that's certainly an unfortunate injury to hear about. We were all excited he came back to Seattle. They like to say the eagle has landed back in Seattle. It was really cool to see that. And then something like this, when a 1-year deal is really unfortunate. And that's one of my big pet peeves with these 1-year deals. I mean, you can go sign this, you go out and you get injured for 3-4 months, and that's half of your contract, if not all of it. And then heaven forbid, good luck getting a good deal after that, which is real unfortunate. We're seeing a lot of injuries also just throughout the league so far this year. I want to touch on a couple. I think the first one that's just sitting on the front of everyone's mind is Fernando Tatis and his shoulder that is just not connected to his body after that swing. I don't know if you guys saw that happen live. When he took that swing, man, you can see his shoulder pop out when he took that swing, and it was just nasty looking. Not a good thing for Tatis. Not a good thing for the Padres. Also, they are still a very well deft team. I think they will be all right. It seems he got a little bit of the Madden curse, as we'll call it here, the show curse. You also have Cody Bellinger over with the Dodgers with that collision at the plate the other night. I think that was last Monday, or earlier last week. He's on the IL. You also have Trevor Rosenthal, who was a big signing by the Athletics. And I don't even think it's been seen in the game yet. So there's been a lot of big time injuries for not just your small players. There's big time players. People have gone out and get, like we said here, Trevor Rosenthal, Cody Bellinger. Obviously, that's a huge injury for the Dodgers. Fernando Tatis, that might be the biggest injury story so far, which leads me to something I wanted to say real quick. This is why when Tatis was looking about getting a new contract before this season, this is why you don't go out and you give 100-some mil to a guy that's played in less than 162 games. This kid could come out with this torn shoulder and be a completely different person. Now, granted, I hope in all hell that he is not, and he will recover fine as a young kid he should. But I know, Leroy, you have a big thing about, this big money here. I want to know what you think about looking at, paying big contracts for someone like Tatis, and then something like this happens.
Yeah, it's a gamble, right? Anytime you give a big contract, it's a gamble. On one hand, it shows your fan base that you're serious and you want to keep your stars. But on the other hand, all it takes is something like this, and heaven forbid, Tatis is not the same as he used to be. And again, we talk about markets a lot here. The Yankees or the Dodgers throwing away this amount of money on a player that may never materialize, or gets bitten by the injury bug. That's one thing. But the Padres, although the Padres are flush with money right now, aren't quite in that same boat. And that's why you see teams like the smaller market teams raising royals and whatnot, just so reluctant to give this big money to a player, even if it's one of their star players, because of something like this. And if something like this happens, it's devastating to set a small market team back 5 to 10 years, whereas one of the larger market teams, Yankees, Red Sox, they just kind of sweep it aside, say, okay, move next, and then move some money into someone else. So it's more for baseball. It's again, the haves and the have-nots, and kind of epitomizes that unlevel playing field that we're kind of dealing with baseball.
I don't know, Davis. I don't know what you think about this Tatis injury here. I know this
Yeah,
is big on everyone's mind.
yeah, injuries are tough, and it's something you obviously can never predict. There are players who are more likely to get injured, like you were, transitioning from the Paxton injury, right? But with Tatis, it's a guy that if you don't give him that contract, we talked about this when he signed that massive deal. If you don't give him that contract, someone else is going to try to get him for more money than you're going to spend. You have to lock him down, and especially when he's, a guy that's looking to be the face of baseball, pretty much. So for me, I don't blame him for giving him that money, and the injury coming right after that, the season right after they sign him is just unfortunate timing. And we've seen it in sports all the time, and not just baseball. And it's just one of the things that goes. And, I think hopefully he can recover from the injury and be fine, but it is a scary sight, especially for the Padres who, like you said, Justin, I mean, they're going to be fine. They're going to, they still have a lot of pieces there. They're still a contender, but Tatis is the, center of that. And just hope he gets back quickly. And he is worth all that money, I think. I mean, we discussed this back episodes back, but yeah, it's just an unfortunate timing, and hopefully he can come back strong.
The thing about baseball that I think sets it apart a little bit from other sports is baseball is so dependent. Players are dependent upon their mechanics, and an injury, especially an upper body injury, has a way of changing mechanics and can really affect a baseball player more so than in other sports where it's more of the athleticism. In your football, your basketball, even hockey, whereas baseball is so much about mechanics, and any little change due to injury in mechanics can completely change a player.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And then seeing an injury like that with that shoulder, like that's never a good look, especially watching that live. That was just gruesome to watch. And then of course, around the league, there's still a lot more injuries too. I feel like we've seen a lot this year. We've even seen Aaron Judge has had a couple days off. Now that one's not a surprise. We assumed that was going to happen at some point. Aaron Boone said he was battling some, I think it was side soreness. So we'll see how that progresses. And that one's unfortunate for Aaron because to start the season, he was raking. I mean, it's very, very small sample size, but he was hitting to stay consistent that way at an MVP level in those first two series. We saw him in New York against the Orioles, and he hit those couple long balls, looking like Aaron Judge, and then now he's really looking like Aaron Judge. And just across the league, we're hoping things are going to settle down a little bit. But again, we're just excited. The players are real excited to be back in front of the fans. You're watching games, you're hearing real boos, you're hearing real cheers, you're seeing real trash cans thrown onto the field by Angel fans. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I want to touch on that. I thought that was for someone that had their feelings about the Astros. That's annoying, man. Don't throw, like, really, you're paying that money around all these other people paying money, being there for the first time, and then it's inflatable trash can. It was funny, but I thought that was a little extra leeway. I want to know what you think about that.
Do you regardless of your feelings on the scandal, and I listened to a full podcast on it, and there's a couple sides of that story that's very interesting, but I won't go into that. Regardless of your feelings, do we really need to give a little extra incentive to a talented team because they're taking it out on the A's, and just they've pissed off the Astros. Now they're beating the hell out of the A's because of it. So,
well, look at the playoff series last year. We were giving them all that talk coming in with the losing record, and they soared right to the ALCS again. Like it was just absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to see. I mean, it's, last year we missed fans. There were no fans at any games, and it's almost as if, are people going to forget a year later? Is it going to be any easier for them? And like, clearly it's not. And every city they go to is going to be waiting for that. And, I've been watching these games. I think especially the teams in their division, like the A's their fans are going to be extra, salty about it. And because they played them many times in that season. And I think it's pretty fun to watch, but I do like how the Astros are kind of just taking it in stride, and they're playing really well. And it's actually, like Leroy mentioned, kind of fueling them to play better, and kind of a chip on their shoulder. So I can't be mad at that, and I can't be mad at the fans for being upset. So it's kind of fun to watch in a way that's maybe not for the best reason, but it's interesting.
Yeah, Definitely interesting to see. You asked, will the fans forget? Fans forget absolutely nothing. They're going to be remembering this 10 years from now. We will still be talking about this. I can
Yeah.
promise you that. But before we get carried away here, we actually have a new segment here that our buddy Jared is bringing us. It's called Fact or Cap. For you, Leroy, cap here is a word that means lie. So we're saying fact or fiction, and then fact or cap. So, Jared, how about you take us away with that for us?
Yeah, that's right. We had to kind of break it down for Leroy here as he is the senior advisor on the show. Not too up there in age, but enough where cap needed to be explained. But nonetheless, let's get into it. It's a new segment on the walk-off here. Thanks for having me back, guys, by the way. Factor cap. I'm going to give each of the guys 3 questions. They're going to answer all 3 questions, each one of them with fact or cap, and explain why they think that is so. And I'm going to start out with Davis. And then after Davis, Leroy's going to answer that same question. After Leroy, Justin will. We'll do that for 3 questions. Okay.
Sounds good.
Let's do it. Davis, you're up first.
All righty.
You better be ready. The Oakland Athletics, oh Lord, begin the season 1-7 on the year so far. So Davis, factor cap, is there reason to worry about the 2021 Oakland Athletics?
Yeah, I figured this was going to come up at some point today. I'll say cap. I mean, you got to look at who they're playing. You know what I mean? If they not winning a single game against the Astros isn't very promising, but they are 1-7, I think, right? Yeah, 1-7. They did get a win, so it's not a great start, but they're a team that gets in rhythm late in the summer and just kind of grinds away. So I'm not going to buy into it too much. Seeing the teams they played, the series have been really tough, and I think it'll open up once they start playing a little bit easier teams and can kind of get rolling a little bit easier. So I'll go cap on that one.
All right, Leroy, factor cap on the Oakland A's here.
I'm going to say fact. We need to worry about them a little bit. And here's why. Not necessarily because who they are as a team, but what they've dug themselves into. Right now, they've dug themselves into a 5.5 game hole, 8 games in, and they've already, they've played how many of those games came against Houston? 6 or 7. So, they're running out of time to make that distance up head to head. And we already know that we've got some really good teams in the American leagues and only 2 wild card spots. So I'm going to say fact just because of who those understood that they're playing against a really good team, and Houston's looking like they could be one of the top teams in the American League, but you can't dig yourself a hole against the potential division winner this early, and especially do so in such terrible fashion. I mean, the first 4 games, Houston put up 9 runs a game, and Oakland's only scored 19. They've been outscored by 40 runs. So I think it's fact. I think it's we can be a little concerned right now based on the hole they've dug themselves.
All right, Justin, what do you think? Factor cap on the Oakland A's?
See, this one for me is tough because I really do think it could go either way. But I'm gonna say this one's cap though, because in a lot like Davis said here, the Athletics, they're a different team. They don't come out and produce the way you see other teams do anyway. It is a little concerning this hole they dug in, but look at who they played. They played the Houston Astros, like we said, just have fuel in their fire. Then they went out in the next series. I believe they were playing the Dodgers, correct? Yeah. It's a really hard way to start a baseball season. I think that can go to any team, no matter how good they are. That's a very tough opening schedule. I would like to see some better production from that starting rotation thus far. The problem with the Athletics is I do think they lost a lot of key pieces last year. And you are going to start seeing that. You're seeing the missing of Liam Hendricks when you're getting in these close games. I don't think Elvis Andrus is quite the shortstop that Marcus Semien was, even if he had that bad year last year. We see him over in Toronto doing real well. Again, like I said earlier, you have a big guy in Trevor Rosenthal they personally went out to get, and he's on the IL with the potential being on there for much longer. So I think the A's are on the very, very tip of the slope. I do think this is cap here. They can turn around. They can get the production on their offense. They have Matt Chapman back, which they're missing in the playoffs. Their bullpen is still really good, but they need to be putting up the runs to help that starting rotation. But I do believe that's going to come at some point. You're going to see Chapman heat up. You're going to see Olsen heat up. You have Piscotty and Kane in the outfield. If they heat up, then they can be a very dangerous team along with Ramon Laureano. So I will say this is cap, but they do certainly need to be careful with the hole they're digging in, because don't forget about the Angels over there in that division also.
Yeah, the Angels off to a very hot start at 5-2. They're just behind the Astros here in the early going. All right, that was the first question. We're going to start with Justin this time. Question number 2. Justin, Akil Baddoo is 5 for 11 so far this season with 2 home runs, 7 RBI, and a 455 batting average. With these numbers, plus his solid defensive showings in the outfield, is Akil Baddoo of the Detroit Tigers the clear favorite to win AL Rookie of the Year? Fact or cap?
I mean, I that has to be fact, man. The way he is playing is just out of this world. But when you look at what he did in spring and then what he's done so far this year, it doesn't look like one of those fluke players. You see him up at the plate. He's taking great at bats. He's taking a lot of pitches. He's having to be pitched to. And obviously we've seen this over the years. When you're a good hitter and you have to be pitched to, you're going to start putting the ball in play. He's playing real good defense. The thing that really, really benefits him is he's playing on a team where he has the potential to play 162, especially being a Rule 5 pick, having to be on the major league roster, all season. I do think he has very good chance. I do think that is fact. As we know, one of the bigger competitions there is Ryan Mountcastle. Now, when it comes down to that, if we're going to look at the fielding, as we can talk about that all morning, as we saw that yesterday, I do think Akil Baddoo is a little ahead in that department, but he just looks like a complete ball player. I can't think of a kid who came up playing only single A and just looks so well-rounded. That swing is beautiful. Like I said, has really good at bats. And I think that's a big thing, about where he's going to be. He's not up there getting lucky like a lot of rookies do sometimes. So this one, I think is fact. I think the Detroit Tigers found a great guy, and poor Cleveland Indian fans is someone else, just another one that they lost and they didn't even know about this one.
Yeah, that's true. Leroy, fact or cap? Akil Baddoo, Rookie of the Year.
I'm going to say cap. Did I use that right? Cap,
Yes,
false
yes.
fiction. And I don't disagree with anything Justin said. He looks like a grown man, right? And he is. He's 22 years old. He's not just a kid coming up making his debut. But a couple of things I think to keep in mind. This is his first dip into the major leagues, and before this, he'd never played above A ball. So his last stop was in Fort Myers in 2019, and we know what happens once major league and no film on him from last year, right? Because he was at their development site. So we know what happens once major league scouts, coaches, and pitchers get your number. But just look at what Mountcastle's doing this year. He's playing well, but major league pitchers know that they can get Mountcastle out with an off speed or a changeup or a curveball. Don't throw him a fastball, right? So eventually, and probably sooner rather than later, that book's going to come out on Baddoo, and I think he's going to keep hitting because, like you said, Justin, he just looks like he's supposed to be there, but certainly not at this rate. And once all it takes is one scout, one pitcher to find that weakness and exploit it, and then then it gets a little tougher. And like we said, Mountcastle's he's kind of figuring that out now too.
All right, we have one fact, one cap. Davis, you're going to break the tie here. Is this fact or cap?
Yeah, I'm going to tip it to cap, but kind of with an asterisk there. I just think, what he's doing is impressive. I just think it's too limited of a sample size to really say that this early, this point in the season. He's got, 11 at bats. You just really can't say it. I think there's more consistent rookies that are going to shine throughout the year. I think Mountcastle will be a more consistent hitter. You got to remember Rosarina is still eligible as a rookie. These are guys that, played a lot of last season as well and have that experience for when they get in a slump, they can maybe get out of it within a couple series. For a young guy like Baddoo, it's going to be tough to get out of a slump if it does happen. I'm not saying that it will anytime soon. He's been incredible, but this is a guy that didn't play minor league ball last year, obviously for obvious reasons with the COVID stuff going on. So that's some experience I think that he missed that will hurt him. And what he's doing is incredible this year, though. I hope he keeps it up. I just think throughout the long run of the season, he might be outperformed by some of the other more polished rookies.
Yeah, that's definitely possible. You got Mountcastle, you got Jared Kelenic in Seattle as well. Leroy, you want to say something before we?
Yeah. I mean, his minor league batting average over the course of this couple of years in the minor leagues is 249 in rookie ball and A ball. There's really nothing to suggest that he's going to hit for this type of average over the course of a whole season. So, I think that's important to look at. He looks good, but it's really way too early.
It is early. And, it would be pretty interesting to see a Rule 5 pick get that Rookie of the Year. But Badu's off to a great start. Good for him. Good for Tigers fans. All right, guys, we're on the last question of Factor Cap, and I'm going to start off with Leroy this time. Here we go. The Phillies have begun the year 5-1, thanks to good pitching and an exciting offense. So, Leroy, Factor Cap, is Philadelphia the obvious favorite to win the NL East after this explosive start?
Yeah, they've looked great, right? I've fully expected them. It was interesting because after the first 3 games of the year, I'm thinking, what, the Phillies are 3-0 and the Orioles are 3-0. It's like 1983 all over again. What's going on here? And to do it by beating up on the Braves looks good. However, again, we're still so early. They've got to go through 14 more games against the Braves. They've still got to play the Mets in 16 or so games. That NL East division is just too competitive to be able to call any team, but especially a team that's probably around a 500, a little over 500 team like the Phillies, the favorite. But hey, they're playing well. They've got a gauntlet to go through in that NL East. That's just a tough division from top to bottom, and it's going to be tough to keep this up over the course of 162 games. So I'm going to say Cap. Did I say that? Cap already?
Yep, you did. All right, Justin, Factor Cap for the Phillies here.
I think this is another tough one, especially the way you word this question here personally, Jared. Are the Phillies going to be a better team than last year and a surprise team? Absolute fact. Are they clear cut to win the division? I think the Braves would have something to say about that. Think the Braves still have this division. The Phillies are good. They look really good. They're hitting well. Rhys Hoskins and JT Realmuto are raking so far this season. They have a slightly improved bullpen, but as we know in all sports, especially baseball, playoffs and division success is really relative because you have 3 and 4 other teams in your division. Also, we've seen just an odd start to the season for the Braves and the Mets with the Nationals COVID protocol, and that was making the Mets not be able to play that first series, and the Braves have come out. They did not look very good at first, but we know that's going to change. I don't think down the stretch in the marathon with that bullpen and that offense that's going to cool down at some point, they don't have that many, high profile guys that are going to keep it up. Obviously, Harper is going to rake. JT Realmuto is great. He's going to hit well. So is Rhys Hoskins. But you're going to need to keep that production consistent from your other players like John Segura and Didi Gregorius. Now, are they good hitters? Yes. Are they consistent hitters? Not quite. And that's something that's going to come into play eventually, especially when you get in, like Leroy said, playing 14 more games against the Braves, who are a team when they start to click and heat up, because they've had a bunch of their pieces not hitting right. But once they start, we've seen how that's a collective team batting average of almost 300 themselves. And that's talking about batting average. So I think the Phillies are in a tough spot in that division. I do think this is Cap in terms of clear cut for the division, but I do think the Phillies are going to continue, surprising people in this division, but I don't think still it's quite there with the Braves. This is going to be an interesting race between them and the Mets, but I think not quite yet to get past the Braves, in my opinion.
All right, Davis, we have the chance to make this the first ever clean sweep on Factor Cap on the walk-off. Is this fact or cap? Do you believe that the Phillies are the clear favorites for that division?
Well, it's not going to be a clean one because I'm going to say fact, but I'm going to revise your, question and say right now, based on what we've seen, right? And it's 6 games into the season, so you really can't take it, too seriously. But for me, it's looking at who they played. Being 5-1 against the Braves and Mets, if they were playing the Marlins and, Pirates, it'd be like, all right, well, the Phillies are 5-1, congrats. But playing 2 teams like that, they're going to be your main competition in the division. It's pretty impressive. It's a great start for a team that has been very inconsistent over the years. So to start off hot instead of really cold. You know, it could easily be 1-5 against the teams they played. And I think the offense is clicking. You know, I said about with Harper, you know, if they didn't sign Real Muto, I think it would have just been a miserable season for him. And they look like they're really fresh and like poised, and having guys like Reese Hoskins and Didi's been hitting really well. So I think they got some momentum. I think their starting pitching looks really good. And it'll be the bullpen, like Justin said. That's, you know, kind of been the case for them for the last few years. So we'll see. They have a big 10-game stretch coming up against they get the Braves again, the Mets, and then the Cardinals. So they could easily be, you know, go 2-8 in that 10-game stretch. And then it's obviously capped, but through 6 games, you know, against the teams they played, it's something to keep an eye on for sure. But this is a very competitive division, and all the records look really bad right now, but there's 4 really good teams, and the Marlins made the playoffs last year. So there's 5 respectable teams but the Phillies, I think, will have a fighting chance. I think the Braves still will outlast them in the end.
Yeah, the Fighting Phils. They're off to a hot start. That was Fact or Cap, the first ever edition of Fact or Cap on the Walk Off podcast. Justin, I would normally hand it back to you right now, but up next on our schedule here is my 7th inning stretch. How about that? So let's just go right into that, and I'll hand it back to you afterwards. We have to start the 7th inning stretch off every week with our weekly trivia question. Now, Davis got a little lucky because he's been gone for a little while, and Leroy nor Justin got a single trivia question right in the past few episodes. So the score is Leroy at 3, holding the lead, and Justin and Davis tied with 2. So let's get into it. The question this week, guys, is this: who has the most opening day starts among active pitchers? Think about it.
I'm locked in.
Yeah, I feel like I have it, but it might be too obvious.
Yeah.
Are we all locked, Davis?
I think I
believe
got an
so.
idea.
Okay, Justin, I'll let you go for. We're gonna go one at a time. Justin, go ahead and go first.
I'm just gonna say Kirsch.
Okay, Leroy,
Yep. That's who I had too.
Davis.
It's got to be Kershaw. Yeah.
If it's not him, I want to think someone like
I
Matt
know. I
Bauer.
want to like throw something. I was thinking, yeah, Mad Bum would be the second choice. I want to
But
throw
I'm going
something
with
off
Kirsch.
to be a
Okay.
wild card.
Okay,
Yeah, it's
we're locking it in. Everybody's locked in. Okay. Sorry, guys. All 3 of you are wrong again.
What?
Guys, this one I thought you had the possibility of getting, because I even included a tiebreaker in here if everybody got it right. The correct answer is Justin Verlander. He has started 12 opening day games in
See,
his tenure.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't think of him as active right now because he's
we
not
haven't
on
seen
a
him in a
roster.
while.
Right. He hadn't announced the retirement yet, guys. Don't let him go quite yet. But yes, Justin Verlander, 12 opening day starts in his career. That's awesome.
So how many does Kershaw have? He can't be that far off.
Can't be too far behind. I
Gotta
don't
be
know.
at like 9 or 10, I think.
Yeah, he's not too far behind at all. But Verlander, correct answer. Sorry, guys. Nobody got that right this week. Nobody moves up on the leaderboard. But let's get into it. Let's get into your 7th inning stretch. All right. We talked about it earlier on the show. Right-handed reliever Trevor Rosenthal underwent thoracic outlet surgery Thursday. Martin Gallegos of MLB.com reports. Rosenthal started the season on the injured list with a shoulder problem that eventually led to the procedure. He'll be reevaluated in 8 weeks. Big blow there for the Oakland A's, especially how they're struggling to start the year. The Milwaukee Brewers have agreed to a minor league contract with D. Strange Gordon. Milwaukee will be the 2nd straight National League Central organization for Strange Gordon, who spent time with Cincinnati during the offseason and in spring training. The Reds ended up releasing him towards the end of March, and though Strange Gordon subsequently rejected minors offers from other teams, he will now settle for one with the Milwaukee Brewers a little over the week into the season. So there's time for him to be called up if necessary. All right, guys. And to wrap it up on the 7th inning stretch this week, a couple of trades happened during the week that we need to talk about. The Yankees acquired Rougned Odor from the Texas Rangers for a pair of minor league outfielders, and the Atlanta Braves acquired Orlando Arcia from the Brewers for 2 pitchers. Both moves give their respective teams depth in the infield. And Justin, that is something that is super crucial in today's game, to have that depth piece there on the bench. So it's going to be interesting to see. And by the way, Rougned Odor is going to have to cut that beard. with the Yankees if he makes that major league roster. So Justin, throwing it back to you, man, to end the show.
Yeah, there's been a lot of cool moves around the league already. As we saw a couple trades, yet RC also being traded. The Rugnet Odor, that one, he punched his ticket to New York, pun intended. So that I thought that was an odd one. But we're going to get into a little bit, different talk here. We're going to talk about this All-Star game. This has been a big discussion over the past week about what's going on in Atlanta with these new voting laws and then baseball. Now, normally they are not together, politics and baseball. Unfortunately, some people, in the MLB like to link them together, and we have seen the 2021 MLB All-Star Game moved from Atlanta after a couple days of deliberation where it is going to go. It has now been said it's going to be at Coors Field in Colorado. Just off the top, I just want to say those poor Atlanta fans, think of it this way: these people that have, first season back with fans, they're like, oh, awesome, our stadium's hosting an All-Star game and it hasn't been in Atlanta in a while. This is a cool experience. Then to something that has absolutely nothing to do with the person is taken away from them. I think off the top, that's a very unfortunate situation for really the Atlanta Braves team and all of their fans and the city of Atlanta, in general. To see it to go to Colorado on a good note, I do think that is really cool. I think we're going to see an exciting home run derby. I think a good All-Star break is something baseball really needs, especially just the direction the game's going, not having one last year. That's the time when everyone gets to see the biggest superstars in the MLB. You even get at least one from each team. Every single fan of every team has the representation, whether or not those players get put into the game. But this one is just an odd situation. We say we're not going to get political, and we're not going to, but I just think it was a wrong move on the MLB and their part to do this to the Atlanta Braves in that city of Atlanta, personally. But good for Colorado. They definitely need something going for them. And I think an All-Star game, that's a good way to do it. It'll be exciting there. Like I said, that home run derby, that slightly higher elevation really doesn't make that big of a difference, but it will be fun. But Leroy, I want to go to you first. I want to know what you think about this move of pulling the All-Star game out of Atlanta.
Yeah, so this is a topic that is just by its nature is very politically divisive. So I'm going to try to skirt around the political aspect of it, and try to focus a little bit on common sense. And so first thing, I don't know if we really know enough yet. But my biggest question is, was this a move that was made unilaterally by Rob Manfred, and he just stood up and said, I'm king of baseball and I'm doing this? Or did he gather input from players, coaches, owners, fans before making this move? I'm really curious to know that. And then I think the second thing that we need to look at is, who are we punishing, right? So, I have small children, and sometimes we accidentally punish children, and in doing so, we punish the wrong people. For instance, if you don't do this, then you're going to go up to your room and you're going to stay there for the rest of the night. And you send your child, your 4-year-old, up to their bedroom, and they end up in the bedroom screaming for the rest of the night so that no one else can get sleep. So who are we punishing? We're punishing the people that can't get any sleep, right? So who are we punishing here by moving the All-Star game? So let's think about this. The reasoning behind this is the voter law passed in Georgia, or in Georgia, that some people think suppresses some of our voters. And when people make that statement, the indication is that it suppresses the votes of people that have historically had their votes suppressed. Typically African American people and other minorities. So this was a law that was passed by politicians, not by the people, right? So are we trying to punish the politicians that passed the law, or the people who are just innocent bystanders, the people of Atlanta who are innocent bystanders. So, I'm not really sure who we're trying to punish here, because ultimately the people that are being punished are the people of Atlanta.
And the fans.
Right. Well, not even just the fans. The fans are a huge part of it, but think about the small businesses that
Right.
were about to benefit. Many of them, of which are minority owned, are now going to suffer. The extra jobs that would have come into the Atlanta metropolitan area for that 4 days, 5 days, a week, whatever. Many of those people would have been minority that would have benefited. So we're not just punishing fans. We're punishing the people of Atlanta. And meanwhile, this does nothing to the politicians of Atlanta, right? That the ones that actually passed this law, does nothing to hurt them. So that's one thing. And then the other, it's those unintended consequences that just makes this feel like it wasn't thought through very well. And then let's think about how tone deaf the move was. So what we're going to do, we're going to take an all-star game that's being played in the city with the second largest majority of African-American people in their metro area in the entire country. Okay. To punish voter suppression against that very group. And we're going to move it to a city, Denver, that has a 9% African-American population. So we're taking jobs and an economic boost from a largely minority city, and we're moving those jobs and that economic boost to a white city. So let's think about that for a second. Of all the places, we're going to choose one of the whitest cities in Major League Baseball. It's just a head scratcher. It smacks of being not well thought through. And, a couple of other things, potentially ulterior motives. We don't know. Who knows? Who knows what, Denver did to get this? We have no idea. And then there's my last point. My third point is, what kind of Pandora's box are we opening now? Are we going to now cut off baseball relationship with China? Because you want to talk about voter suppression, they don't get to vote. Cuba, right? Look at the talent that comes into major leagues from Cuba. We play games in Cuba. They don't allow people to vote. So, what kind of Pandora's box are we opening? And, let's go major league city by city. And I'm willing to bet that we can find a law in the books on just about every city that in some way, shape, or form disenfranchises a group of people. Are we now going to break down every law and make this kind of power move? I just think it's a poor decision. I think it's a tone deaf decision. And I think it's punishing people that had nothing to do or very little to do with, I'm trying not to get political here. But the congressmen, the lawmakers that voted this law in were mostly Republican. That's just fact, right? That were voted in to the Georgia state legislatures from the suburbs, not from the city of Atlanta. The city of Atlanta does not vote in that way. It hasn't historically. So again, we're punishing the people in the city of Atlanta for the decisions politicians made. And you can't even say, well, the people of Atlanta voted those politicians into office, because they didn't. So it's just, it just smacks of, either some kind of conspiracy or just extreme incompetence and tone deafness on the part of the commissioner. So rant over.
Yeah, real quick, Davis, before I go to you, I want to point out something. This is the one thing I thought of the other day, and Leroy, you made me think of it when you're talking about it, when it's just ulterior motives. And Manfred, first off, Rob Manfred, you suck, man. Like, just, you suck. This is awful. But then I want to look at it this way. The difference of the fan attendance in Colorado to Atlanta. Now, obviously, we know Atlanta's the much better team. Those people want to go out to visit Atlanta. But Atlanta is a city with the higher population of these people who are wanting to stay home, not go out and do things, and that even includes an all-star baseball game. So when you look at it this way, as compared to Colorado, where that livelihood is a lot more open, in terms of COVID than it is in a lot of other places. And a big part of me is also Rob Manfred looking at this like, man, I can make a good wallet off of you, but I can make an even better wallet off of them. Oh, but here's a good reason. Goodbye. We're going to Colorado. But Davis, I want to hear what you think about that.
Yeah, and absolutely. Like, and if Manfred has a chance to look like he's woke or, look like he's doing the right thing, he'll do it no matter if he believes it himself or not. So that's something you got to kind of take with a grain of salt there. But I think it's a lose-lose scenario. And I do see both sides of it. The big thing for me is that it was to be played in, Hank Aaron's city after his passing. It would have been a great honor to him. And, certainly would have been quite the event. But at the same time, Hank Aaron was, big into, civil rights and that those kind of movements. So it's hard to say, would he support or not. He's passed away. You can't really make those judgments, but that's a bummer for me because he certainly would have been honored. He still will be in Colorado, and throughout this whole season, but that would have been really cool. It is brutal, I think, for Atlanta small businesses, and the fans are the ones that are hurting the most because they had no impact on this. Like you were saying, I think the people that pass these laws should be punished if you believe that or not. But, certainly the fans have nothing to do with why this is happening. And the people of Atlanta that deserved it and were excited for this game, it's a bummer for them. But like I said about Manfred, he makes the move to Colorado. I think it's something he just kind of had to do. If he doesn't do it, he's going to look bad. I saw a report that players and former players push for the move. I'm sure there's many other outside sources too, but if the players believed it, I'll always support the players because it's a players league. As fans, we love the game, but these are the guys that are out there every night. They're playing during a global pandemic. If that's what they wanted, I'll support it. I don't think it's a move that ultimately had to be made, but if you don't do it, it's a bad look. And for me, if the players want it, that's, I think, what's best. But as to the fans, it is very divisive. There's old school fans. There's the Aubrey Huffs of the world that are just going to tear it up. And that's always going to be there as baseball changes and as the world changes. But if the players didn't want to force them to play there would be tough. I think, we've seen in the NBA when things are going on, like making a statement, or there's other ways they could have maybe gone about it, do something that, if you're still play the game in Atlanta and you make some kind of statement that sort of embarrasses these people that pass the law while still allowing the jobs to be in Atlanta, the small businesses profit, all this, right? And you still get your point across. So I think there could have been other ways to deal with it. I think the decision was made quickly by Manfred, maybe too quickly, like Justin, you were saying. And I'm not sure if necessarily it was the right thing to do, but it's a move that I saw coming as soon as it happened. We saw this, the ACC did this back about 3 or 4 years ago. They moved their tournament from North Carolina to Brooklyn after they passed some anti-LGBT bathroom laws that discriminated who could use bathrooms and whatnot. And they moved to Brooklyn for for just 1 year, and they came back to North Carolina next year. And it was something that was very controversial, very similar to this on a smaller scale. And it's very similar. They were, divisive. It was a two-sided thing. And I think for baseball, I think the game is just changing, and I think the audience is changing too. And the future of the sport's always going to be up in the air. I don't know. It's a tumultuous time. I can really see both sides of it, so it's hard to get too political about it. But at the end of the day, I hope the game in Colorado goes well, and the fans are always going to have baseball to lean on. So I don't know. I think, like I said, I don't think Manfred should be applauded for it, certainly. And I think it's something he just did to kind of look good. And but I hope the game goes well in Colorado at the end of the day.
I want to go back real quick and into who are we punishing here? And, one thing I find interesting. So, theoretically, Rob Manfred did this to punish the state of Georgia for passing a voting law that some feel to be oppressive in nature. Whether you feel it is or not, that's irrelevant, but that's the reasoning. However, fun fact, Mr. Manfred is a member of Augusta National Golf Club in Augusta, Georgia, right? To my knowledge, he has not rescinded that membership, which would be the right thing to do, right? If we're trying to make a statement, that would be the right thing to do, particularly belonging to a golf club that is steeped in racial inequities and racial bias. They didn't admit their first African-American player or member until like maybe 1990, and the first woman in 2012. So it's, if we're going to stand on this high moral ground, we have to be complete with it. And, it's easy to hold a corporation and the fans of that corporation hostage without holding yourself accountable. So that's one thing that that really rubs me the wrong way about this is that if we really feel this, if he really feels this way, and if he does, I get it, I understand, because like Davis, I see both sides of the issue, but we have to be complete. And when you're going to hold yourself, you're going to hold your organization to a higher moral ground, you need to hold yourself to that same higher ground. And it doesn't appear Mr. Manfred has done that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point you brought up, Leroy. That's something interesting to think about. On this side we hear all about double standards, but when it's him, of course, doesn't. But we can go on all day long about Rob Manfred and how much he sucks and these poor, fans and businesses in Atlanta. But again, what's done is done, though. Us sitting here is not going to change that. We can talk about all we want, but we do believe that it is unfortunate. We hope that seeing this changes things also. I hope this isn't just something that disappears after the All-Star game. This is something that needs to be looked into afterward. See the reason why Rob Manfred feels so strongly this quickly, move something that's been in place for what they choose these 3-4 years ahead of time. But like I said, before we go all day, we are gonna end the show here. Finally, we're gonna get in today in baseball history where it's stuff happening during a season. Actually, so this first one here, it's a pretty cool one. In 1993 is Bo Jackson. This is actually like the inspiration for his Bo New Nike ad campaign. So I'm sure, Leroy, I'm sure you remember all Bo Jackson. I know me and Davis, big fans of his as sports fans because he is the ultimate athlete. But this is his first game back after his hip surgery, which he hurt on a run with the back when he was with the Raiders. Hits a home run on opening day to begin his 1993 Comeback Player of the Year season. This is pretty cool. Time there. Bo Jackson was an awesome guy. You always think of the image of him running up the outfield wall to make that catch. So, that one was pretty cool. But go real quick. You two, any last thoughts before we walk off here?
Thanks for the Bo Jackson shout out. I used to have some Bo Nose t-shirts, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
Good. Well, we thank you all for listening. Like we said, we'll be here next time for some more in-season analysis and updates. So do not forget to follow us. Check us out on the web. We're on Facebook. We're on Spotify. We're on Twitter. You want to make sure you check that all out. But unfortunately, for now, it is time to walk it off.